Welcome to It's Meaningless. This is the podcast for entrepreneurs who are tired of stuck and are ready to stomach the brutal truth. We discuss here core truths that will help you to discover the meaningless daily habits that keep you from protecting and growing in life and in business. This is episode 4. We're talking about NDAs, non-disclosure agreements. So I there's a game I used to play called Age of Empires. Some of you who are getting a little older, like me, know about that. Um, that is effectively, it's I don't know, it's probably, I guess it was kind of the precursor to Minecraft or um, games like that. Um, I forgot the name of the genre of games, but it's kind of the precursor to that. Kind of a civilization building game. You build your civilization. You war with different civilizations, multiplayer setup kind of thing. Um, so used to play that a lot when I was back in high school and college. Not a ton like people these days, but a lot for back then. Um, but that game wound up being like the my introduction into this topic of security and like how it played out, how it works. Um, so effectively, I'm playing this game on my strategy before when I first started was effectively I build these all these structures to protect and effectively like for the most part I build all these walls, build all these walls, um, and then I got this idea to where I could build like walls, obviously to engulf all the things that I wanted to protect, which was everything. And then uh, I got this idea to build like a second wall around the wall, which was kind of a nice little barrier. That way, um, it was additional layer of protection, um, and it provided for um, it provided for um, kind of an offensive advantage. Um, in other words, I could shoot from people at people from inside either one of the layers of walls while they were sitting outside trying to get in. Um, but as some of you may know, like the problem with that was that while that was a really good strategy, defensively, offensively, it was not. I mean, that's just hands down. Like while I was spending all these resources trying to build these walls, like offensively, I'm doing much of nothing. Um, and then realistically speaking, offensively, I if I couldn't gain territory, then I wasn't acquiring new resources. I wasn't acquiring new means of gaining more resources. So it it really became and not to mention like while I'm spending resources on this wall, all the other players are spending resources on developing their armies, developing um, their civilizations, developing their resource building, um, and I'm spending resources on just on protection. So the idea here is like protection is not for protection's sake. Like there's a I do a lot in terms of like security, um, on kind of a technical side. That is, I do a lot of like software applications, um, and I've done a lot with like financial securities in the past. So like I'm very familiar with around the world of security. So there's a guy who actually one of my mentors. One of the things he told me is there is either as far as security goes, either you're protecting, if you're trying to protect everything, effectively you're protecting nothing. And even then, like I'm pausing for effect to let that settle in for some of you, because it sounds weird, but it's 100% true. It's like if I'm trying to put a circle around everything that I own, everything that is in my sphere, everything in my business, and guard it all, the truth is I'm protecting nothing. And part of the reason that is this topic of resources. Like there are only so many resources that you can spend on protection. And in other words, if you don't have resources coming in to protect, or you're spending all of your resources on protection, then at that point you're literally protecting nothing. Maybe you might have to chop some of those walls down and go sell them for something. But anyway, that is the idea that I think is helpful to come in to this topic of NDAs, non-disclosure agreements. And speaking of security, on a podcast about protection, overprotection, I have to give a disclaimer. This is that, like, I'm not an attorney. I don't give legal advice. I can't give legal advice. So effectively, while we're going to talk about NDAs here, nothing in this podcast can be considered as legal advice, because, like I said, I don't give legal advice. I can't. I'm not an attorney. So, yeah. With that said, we can go on, and probably we'll do an episode on disclaimers at some point, because I think there's a good translation to that topic too. But as far as NDAs are concerned, so one of the things that I've ran into a lot, trying to remember if I've had anybody sign an NDA for an idea I've had. I've considered it, but I don't think I ever have. So a lot of the work that I do is in the area of custom software. So clients come, they have ideas about some application they want to build. And of course, for some people, which I get, like some people, the idea is really near and dear to their heart. It's like their baby. The one they hadn't done anything to birth yet, but it's like their baby. But it's an idea. They want to find out how to get it done and get it into reality. And so they come to me with the idea and say, "Oh, I got this idea, blah 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 blah," and then, without giving too much detail, part of the conversation turns into, "Well, okay, I can tell you more or show you more when we sign an NDA." So that's all fine and cool, except, and again, this is like, none of this is legal advice, except for the fact that, I mean, the topic ultimately comes down to, like, what is the um, what's the net value? And you could say, like, in terms of like initial investment for having an NDA, the amount of time it takes you to sign, the amount of time it takes you to read it, the amount of time it takes, or the amount of the cost that it takes to print out, or to use DocuSign. Um, you could probably count that as the cost, the upfront cost, which obviously is minuscule. But I would challenge us to go a little bit deeper in terms of upfront cost. And I think the biggest thing I would hit on is trust. How much trust does it cost? And then from there, like, what's the value of the trust? So in being an entrepreneur for the past 10 years, obviously I told you about the Age of Empires game. When I started out as an entrepreneur, like I had progressed a little bit in mindset from this like super secure everything mindset. I had progressed a little bit. I'm not saying a whole lot. I've learned a lot in the last 10 years, but I had progressed some. But when I first started, this idea of, I guess, having people sign an NDA, like, to me, that would have been like an automatic. But since being in the business world, what I have found, and this is just practical relational, what I found is that deals simply deals only happen when there's trust, like deals that work. Like, I'm not talking about you can make something up and have it fall or crumble a year later, 2 years later, or 6 months later. Deals that actually have the potential to go somewhere. Like, if there's no trust there, then there's no point to trying to make a deal. In fact, one of my mentors, actually sales mentors, at least through the media he's published, he's passed, but Zig Ziglar, one of the things he's said before is you can't make I've heard him say is you can't make a good deal with a bad guy. In other words, if it's somebody you can't trust, like, there's no point in trying to do business with them. Like, ultimately, you're gonna come out losing something. So with that said, like, requesting somebody up front to sign an NDA on an idea, when we're just talking about cost here, the question comes as to how much does that convey to the person that you don't trust them? And I'm like, granted, like, you just met them, that part's fine, but at the same time, there's a basic level of trust that has to be extended initially in order for you to grow in trust in the relationship. Obviously, it's good to set out terms. It's good to set out expectations. It's good to set out details, which may be a reason to have an NDA. However, it's the point really is it is it beneficial? Is it necessary? Um, in other words, I believe there are probably some instances where it's a good idea to, um, but and obviously that's kind of on a case by case basis. And like I said, this is not none of this is legal advice. And I would like, obviously, I mean, this is a question that I think would be great for you to consider with your attorney for your specific circumstances. And at the same time, I think it's good to keep in mind the practical ramifications of coming out of the gate with, um, "Hey, here, sign this NDA before I talk to you anymore." Um, so, in fact, I've I have through kind of a business associate, a business partner, um, business relationship that I've had. I've kind of heard about Mark Cuban. Effectively, I've heard it that he doesn't, which makes sense. Like he doesn't sign NDAs. People come to him with an idea, like they either share it or they don't, which completely makes sense. And the reason I wasn't quite sure about it at first. I mean, obviously his status is another thing, a big consideration. But I realized after thinking about it for a little bit, and especially like being in my field, um, there, like it's a liability to have all these NDAs signed, especially you're going to be hearing opportunities daily. Um, there's no way to keep up with who told you what, when, how. There's just no way. Um, now, like, and the reason I think that this conversation of NDA, whether to have one or not, is a good one, is largely because of this reason. Um, effectively, in the end, like, what would be in other words, there's not a lot of upfront costs. Um, but then in the end, like, what would be the actual benefit? Again, like, this is something to talk about with an attorney. But if let's say, in other words, the reason for doing the NDA in the first place is really for someone who is like on purpose, like nefariously trying to take your stuff. Like their own purpose, they're trying to take your stuff. They not, in other words, they haven't made a mistake or anything, which is like tangential. Um, in other words, that's something that could be is something that can be corrected if somebody had like legitimately made a mistake. That is, they ran into somebody else who had the same idea or something along those lines. That's a totally different story. Like the NDA is to protect against someone who like potentially has um yeah, has like bad intent. They want to take your stuff. They say, "Oh, this is a great idea. I can use this for me and keep it for mine." So first of all, especially I'm going to speak a little bit more to like software, new applications, new, and probably engineering as a whole. Um, but definitely anything software. First of all, like the amount of work that it would take to implement said idea um, is usually um, like prohibitive for anybody to try, really, like seriously try to steal your idea. Now, don't get me wrong, like there's some ideas that are better than others. Uh, um, and at the same time, most aren't that great. Um, like most are good ideas, and frankly, there's a ton of good ideas. In fact, um, I saw a list somewhere on the internet, some forum site where they had just a list of like I think it was like it was over 100 different brand like at new app ideas. Um, they're just out there. Like anybody can go implement them. Anybody can go do what they want to do with them. I don't know. I mean, I've read through a couple of them. They seem like pretty decent ideas. Some seem pretty good, um, and some required a little bit of. Um, some require more effort than others to actually implement. But even still, like I say all that to say is like, I mean, there's no shortage of great ideas, especially with the internet. We keep talking about how the internet is still pretty young, um, in terms of like what we can do with it. Like, and I think we're starting to see now, like how much that's true. Um, like, there's no shortage of ideas. However, there's a shortage of people who can implement those ideas. Um, so right now, I guess this comes to a conversation of probability. Um, like, what is the probability that someone would hear your idea, benefit or value your idea, which frankly, that's a big thing in itself. Like, you can tell 100 people and maybe only 10% see the value. Um, so that weeds out a bunch of people already. Um, they value your idea. They that is, they see value in it. Um, they have the resources, and I wouldn't bank too much on this part, but it's not the only part. They have the resources to implement the idea. Um, but the biggest point, I think, is like, do they have the will to do it? And frankly, for most most I'd say most things fail there. Like, because seeing an idea is one thing. Seeing that it could have some market, um, um, kind of market feasibility is another thing. But given the fact that there's so many different ideas, um, there's no shortage of good ideas. It seems like these days, um, at least not for me. Like, tell me if if you see things differently, but there's no shortage of good ideas. Um, so in order to actually pick one, um, to actually implement it, like it takes a considerable amount of will to do it. Like, you have to want to do it. Um, which, frankly, if it's your idea, it comes to you. You're the one. Like, you're the one who wants to do it. Um, so that is that's kind of going a little, well, not deeper, but Yeah, it was complete. I think it was complete. Um, on this topic, a little close to complete on this topic of NDAs. I think the other part, I think there is one more part. Um, yeah, to tie this up and bring it home. The other part of this is we talked about you're the one who wants, who that is, it's your idea. You're the one who wants it. So you're the one who actually is more willing, is going to be more prone to put all the effort into it that needs to be put into it to bring it to the finish line. Um, the other part of this is people who want an NDA signed generally have a mindset of this is typical, just general. Generally have a mindset of that protection thing that I talked about in the Age of Empires game. Um, Generally have that mindset of I need to try to protect everything. Um, the problem with that, especially in business, and I know this is probably more so for, well, no, it's not true. I was going to say this is probably more so for earlier stage entrepreneurs, but it's just not true. I've met older um, entrepreneurs um, that have this mindset too. Um, but for the most part, like mature entrepreneurs, that is mature entrepreneurs that have been entrepreneurs, that is have started multiple ventures, like they're not asking for NDAs. That like that's part of the reason I talk about this. But um, the reason that I think they don't um, is this, that whole um, protect everything. Let's put my arms around everything and protect everything, guard everything. Um, it limits your potential. It limits possibilities. So effectively, ideas don't really, like any idea that you come up with, you're going to need somebody to help you implement it. Which means, like, it's at the end of the day, like you have to tell somebody. Um, yeah, you have to tell somebody. And frankly, the fewer resources that you have to start, really, the more people you would benefit. The more you would benefit from telling more people. Because the more people you tell, the more chances that you have of aligning with someone who's willing to run with you in your vision, to run with you in implementing your idea, which you're going to need the help. So that is, and I know for some that may not seem like a big deal, but of course, like this all comes down to, like, are you going to launch it, or is it just going to stay like in a petri dish inside your closet? Petri dish probably is not a good analogy because stuff grows in there. Um, but effectively, is it's just going to stay on the shelf in your closet doing nothing. Um, so yeah, that's the I think that about sums it up. So yeah, this is this has been a good episode. I think. If you think so, let me know. Um, yeah, so I am going to, again, this is Tuesdays and Thursdays. It's looking like um, we're going to be going live about 8 a.m. Central Standard Time, Tuesdays and Thursdays, um, somewhere around that ballpark. And yeah, so we'll be putting this out Tuesdays and Thursdays every week, continuing this conversation on security. That is, like, how can we like do the things that actually secure while progressing, moving forward. Um, yeah, moving forward in the things that we want to actually accomplish, things that really move the needle um, to what we want, not just away from what we don't want. Um, so that is episode 4. Take care. And